First Gallery. This church is about not just showing up, not just being here, but really tapping into who you are, who God made you to be, the gifts, the talents, and the calling on your life. And so those of you who are here, I hope that you're inspired in some kind of way, whatever that thing is, whatever that venture, whatever that thing that makes your heart pound a little bit more. I hope you're inspired to leave here, stew on it, get home, pick up your paintbrush, pick up your pen, pick up your guitar, whatever it is, it's not there by accident. I promise you, it is there on purpose. And so we hope that you guys were inspired, that you guys got to talk to some of the artists, spend some time just getting your creative juices flowing and good conversations around that. We get to sit here and enjoy a great conversation and just be encouraged by a world-renowned artist, leader, pastor, all the things, the list goes on. Pastor Phil Pringle is going to come, and he's going to really just encourage us. And he is a part of not only why C3 Fort Worth is here, but the vision around why we do what we do, why we want to help people become who they're supposed to be. That's a part of his mission that him and his wife started. And so they're going to be able to come here and talk to us about that and encourage us. So if we can give it up for him, for just not only being here, but just for what he's about to do for us. So come on up. We're ready to hear an encouraging word from you, Pastor Phil.
Michelle. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. That's so kind of you. And what a delight to be here in this brand new, well, it's kind of pretty close to being brand new, right? Yeah, I was here when it was not like this. So congratulations to everybody who's part of this congregation, and to Brandon and Meredith. You guys have done a fantastic work here. And to have the breadth of thinking, to have an art night in your brand new building, and to set the pace of a culture, that's pioneering, and it's fantastic. We have in the buildings that we put up in Sydney. Have you ever been there? Oh yeah, we had an art gallery in there that we held various functions in there, and so having this and having an art gallery out there, which is not just a lobby, it's an art gallery, right? and well, I just think it's brilliant. One of the things that concerned me when I did become a Christian at age 19, that's like 53 years ago. I'll do the math for you. No, I won't. I love Jesus and love believers, most of them, and found that. But I found that there was a thinking that sort of reacted against art, and I was trying to be an artist. That was my life's calling. I felt. I went to the School of Fine Arts in Canterbury, in New Zealand, and I was hoping to be a sculptor and a painter, and so I did training for all of that. But then I got saved, and I put down my brushes. I put down everything for maybe about 25 years. I did an occasional painting, bits and pieces here and there, but I had given my life to serve the Lord and be a pastor and preacher and build the church. But then one morning, and I know there's a list of questions I've looked through that Brendan's going to ask me shortly, but one morning I walked out of our bedroom door, which went into our backyard, and I literally saw a painting that I knew I was to paint, and it was in a style that I had never done before. It was a kind of a very spatula, thick paint, put it all over the place, and so I did that. And I had never sold a painting, even though I had thought I would be an artist. I'd never sold a painting, but somebody saw that painting and they said, "Is that for sale?" And I said, "Sure." And they said, "How much?" And I said, "I don't know, man, $500? They said, "Sure, here," and paid me $500 and took away a painting. So I did a bigger version of that painting, one that was, like about that big, maybe a bit bigger than that, maybe 6 by 4. And somebody else saw that And they said, I like that. I'd like to buy it. How much? I said, I don't know, 2,000? He said, sure, and he paid it. So I did a really big version of this painting. I did a huge version of it, and one of my best friends, pastors, he said, I really like that, and I couldn't sell it to him. But he got it valued at 100,000, so for insurance purposes, and I don't know who put that valuation on it, but they might have been drunk when they did that. I'm not sure. But it is a delight to be here. I haven't got any big paintings here because whatever I brought came in a suitcase. And we used to, but you can go to my website, philpringle.com, and you'll see a few artworks in there. And we do a lot of commissions these days. For a while, I did live paintings for about maybe 10 years, especially at Easter. I would do the cross, and they were very big paintings, huge. And I'd do that in about 20 minutes, and then I'd do the resurrection in about the same time. One time I tried 3 paintings, and that was the end of me doing live paintings. Although there was one other time when I did the Last Supper, and I did that a few times, painting of the Last Supper, and I don't know where it was, but I stood back and I was looking at it on the stage, and sometimes there were like in one of those Easter times, there may be 10,000 people sitting in the audience in Singapore, maybe more than that, 12. And but anyway, I'm standing back looking at it, and I'm looking at Jesus and the 12 disciples, and I go 1, 2, 3, and there was only 11. It must have been after Judas left, But I went back and I squeezed in one more disciple and got him in there, thankfully. And some people said to me that was honestly the most spiritually moving experience I've ever had. Because I had some pretty dramatic music going with it all, and I would talk occasionally while I was painting. And then people would come to Christ at the end of it in quite a big fashion. And so I enjoyed doing that for a while, but the setup is huge. It takes a bit to get it all happening, the stand and all that. But the reason I say that is because none of us quite know where we're going from the day when I saw that picture of a painting I should paint to the day when I'm doing it on a stage in front of 12,000 people and hundreds of people saying, yeah, I want to know this Jesus. And so the journey that God has got you on with your art has really big meanings to it, really high-level purpose. And there's not a soul on earth that's not an artist. I don't believe that, there are artists and then there are the non-artists. Everybody has the soul of an artist. And whether you are creating food in your kitchen, Mum, for the kids, that's a work of art. And whether you are helping design a home for your children or they're helping you out, that's a work of art. And we as Christians have suffocated the artist's soul in us in the name of holiness and being separated from the world or something. And so we ended up with these the disappointment for me was walking into churches that looked more like a shoebox and they justified it by saying, well, it's for the Lord. And therefore it should not be either like grand or excellent or expensive or beautiful. It's just utility based only. And I felt that's such a violation of the God I know. And so we pursued a renaissance of some kind of recovering art in church. And we had a school of creative arts in our church, maybe for 30 years, where we had 7 streams of art, and one was dancing, which was always incredibly well attended. A lot of people from all over the world came to learn how to dance in our dance school, and I'm not sure that we taught them as well as a ballet school. I'm positive we didn't teach them as well as a ballet school, but we helped them have that expression towards God. And we did painting, then we did filmmaking, we did songwriting, singing, writing music, and lighting for church and all of this. And so we wanted to help churches feel at home and comfortable about having an artistic world which enriches the soul, not just our spirit, and everybody's soul. And art is the world of the soul. And to think that, like I would hear people say, oh, that's soulish, as though that's a negative thing. If you are into that, then you're a soulish Christian. I'm going like, and what's wrong with that? That I like good music, that I love great art. That if that's what being soulish is, then so be it. I don't think we should be fleshy and worldly, but I do think our soul has an appetite that we should satisfy. And I've met pastors, I've talked with pastors who are crying across the table from me in their gray suit and their white tie or whatever. And they're saying, I so love your church. I want to be in this, but the denomination, just they never allow me to stand up there without a tie on, and certainly not in a pair of jeans or something. And they're restricted by a thinking that is not from heaven, is not from God. So I want to start with a scripture. Ephesians 2 verse 10 says, we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works. Okay, that's the part I wanted. But that word workmanship means poema. Greek word, poema, means we're his poem. We're his poetry. He is creating a life that rhymes. We are his creation, as in a created, unique song. You are a masterpiece that he's creating. If you were a painting, you'd be a Rembrandt. If you were a song, you're something that's made by Handel or some rich songwriter of history. If you were a poem, you are this kind of poem that God is creating in the earth, that people will read your life and see it as a work of art, see it as something that's beautiful and creative, and definitely not something that we should be nervous about. God also presents himself as a potter, making clay pots. And he says to Jeremiah, look, go down and check out the potter's house. That's what I am. I take lumps of clay, shapeless lumps of clay, and I turn them into beautiful vases that can carry life, carry water into other people's worlds. So God is at work in us. God is at work in you and I, making us into a vessel that can carry something that refreshes other people's lives. When God created the heavens, and so here I want to just go through, I think I've got 3 points here about the kind of art that we can be creating. I'll give you one more story before I start on this. A few years ago, the Japanese TV network, Nippon TV network, won a contract to restore the Sistine Chapel ceiling. I don't know if you've ever been there in the Vatican and you've looked up and you've seen this ceiling. It's amazing, absolutely astonishing. It tells the story of creation from the beginning to the end. In fact, on the final wall is the last judgment. And so the whole story of Job, of Moses, of Abraham, it is an unbelievable experience. But when I went to art school, which was way back in the 1970s, I know it's a long time ago for some of you. Dinosaurs roamed the earth, people. But when we were looking at this, like Sistine Chapel ceiling in the history books, they were amazing because they would say, Michelangelo has chosen subdued colors ochres and these background colors, so that God is not imposing himself on the world. He is not intruding in our lives. He is not being boldly presented. So Michelangelo has understood that and therefore painted it like this. However, when they started restoring the fresco, they found that the candles that had been burning down below, the wax and the soot from the candles had gone up and discolored the mural. And when they started to suck out with this gentle restoration fluid, distilled water mostly, they found that he had used the most brilliant colors on earth. Hugely bright. In fact, I'll read you a quote from an art critic, Rachel Campbell. "It is willfully provocative to put a sculptor most famous for his pallid stone carvings on a list of the world's greatest colorists. But his Sistine Chapel paintings, coming together as they do to create the single greatest pictorial scheme of the Italian High Renaissance, are among the most vibrant works of Western art ever created. After a recent and highly controversial restoration in which solvents were used to strip away half a millennium's work of accrued candle smoke and grime, and with it, many argue, the artist's own shadowy subtleties, Michelangelo is being reassessed. Every book on this artist will have to be rewritten," declare the historians. Because we had read that he was creating this subdued look up there, but actually it was like ridiculously extroverted, super color. It was high definition, magnificent color. And he understood that this is what God is like. This is the God who created peacocks. This is the God who created crayfish. It's crazy. Giraffes and hippopotamuses. It is amazing the colors that are in the bird life and the fish life. To think of him as subdued or anything but a joyful creator is ridiculous. And so I guess the metaphor shouldn't be lost on us that the smoke of religion has wafted up on the image of God, and we now have this image of a dull God. And therefore, we transform into the image of the God we perceive. We think if he's dull and shy and withdrawn, we think that's what a good Christian is. And unfortunately, that view of a Christian has pervaded all of recent church history until more recently. You've got some crazy spirit-filled people, charismatics or Pentecostals, who think God should be exuberant and life-giving and really decided that expressions of all kinds of artist expressions are legitimate and can be used in church and in worship and in all kinds of ways. I think we're still finding our way with it. But the design of church buildings, the design of church services, the design of church music. When I got born again, we weren't allowed to have these synthesizers in church. We weren't allowed to have electric guitars or drums. There was only a few holy instruments that you were allowed to have. And it's been typical like that. John Knox called the organ the devil's whistles. When it turned up, he didn't want anything to do with music like that coming into the church. And religiousness has had this resistance to artistic enrichment of the churches that we live in. And so the Holy Spirit, when he comes upon us, he will activate the artist's soul. That is one of the things that he will do. Exodus 31 verse 1 says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, see, I have chosen Bezalel, son of Uri, the son of Hur of the tribe of Judah, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, with all kinds of skills to make artistic designs for work in gold, silver, and bronze, to cut and set stones, to work in wood, and to engage in all kinds of crafts." This is the first time we read of the Spirit of God coming upon a person. And what he came upon him to do was to actually create artistic works. So God the Creator, for us to be like him, when you look at him creating the heavens and the earth, after each day of creation, he looked at it and he smiled. He said, "That's good." In my view, that was like the greatest understatement in the history of the universe. I would call it, "Wow, that is unbelievably awesome." At least I'd say, "That's great." But to just say that's good, that's kind of like, yeah, it's good. But maybe essence is more important than greatness. Maybe the essence of goodness in his creation was more important than saying it is great. And I know there's a wonderful leadership book called From Good to Great, but maybe we could write another one, From Great to Good, because I'm not sure God is wanting you and I to aspire to greatness all the time. Let's all be great. But maybe, what do you want to be when you grow up? Good. And maybe goodness in our art that is actually able to communicate goodness to other people. And unfortunately, to me, I feel like that, I don't know if I would say the devil has hijacked a lot of art pursuits because it's so dark and dismal. And I see that in movies and movie directors and what they're trying to aspire, and they say they're reflecting the world or whatever. And I'm thinking, well, I don't want to do that. I want to influence the world. And I would like to put a smile on people's face when they see what I've painted, or else I want it to move them to a good place in their heart and to a good place in their soul. That's my own personal motivation, and it may not be others. With David, the King David, who slew Goliath, an incredible warrior, and yet he is also an amazing poet. But he didn't just write the Psalms. He invented musical instruments to play them on. He created the musical instruments for him. He not only did that, with the Holy Spirit on him, he became an architect as well. He designed the entire temple that Solomon, his son, built. So he had this huge artistic soul that was opened up on the inside of him, as well as being an incredible military warrior. The mix is amazing. When you think of Winston Churchill, he was also an artist. And there is something about us releasing that artistic part of our soul that helps us in other areas. The right brain activated is going to help the left brain out. And I've read a book once called Why Right Brainers Will Rule the World. And that's people who have got this inspiration river flowing in their life so that it actually moves into their architectural design. I know one Japanese university that demands that all the engineering students also do a music course. So it's not just numbers and a utility-looking bridge that they put up, but it's got music in it. And that is part of the reason why in a lot of new architecture that you see around the world, it flows. It's got new design, it's got new looks that is helpful for the community, because to help your architecture define the space you live in, it changes people. When we were designing our buildings in Sydney, the architect and engineer I was working with, he helped me immensely, because I wanted one building here, but there was another good space on the property over here where we could build a space. And he said, "No, we don't want to do that. We want to build that building just opposite this one, so that when people come out of the two buildings, they meet each other." And then he wanted the roof to come down to a certain level so that the building didn't make people feel small. And so I think the spaces that we create, just as architects or as artists or as singers, if it can enhance humans and help them feel better about themselves, and then help them feel better about meeting each other and being with each other, I think our art is helping us serve the purpose of the kingdom of God. Just another couple points, and then I'm going to finish, and Pastor Brandon is going to come up and ask me some other questions. We've got to find our voice if we want to be artists that have an impact. We need to know our story, because nobody has lived your life. You're the only one on earth who has lived the life you've lived. And you've got a story. And there is at least one person on this earth who needs to hear it. I would say hundreds that you can help hear your story. So whether your voice comes out in song, whether it comes out in art, whether it comes out in poetry, whether it comes out in writing a book, however our story needs to come out. All of us should write a story. We live our lives to record them. And we have an obligation, I think, to share what we have given. And so the channel of sharing should be an artistic channel that we have developed, a skill that we have honed and worked on to actually help create what we're doing. Sometimes I see people, they do what they call abstract art, but I know that they couldn't even draw a face if you asked them to. I said, hey, give me a nice landscape. I just want to know that this is an undisciplined mess. I want to know that you could do it, but and therefore anyway, I think a good thing you should ask yourself with your art is, what am I trying to say? Sometimes I have that at the top of my preaching notes. What am I trying to say? Just to remind myself to stay on topic. But an artist should say, what am I trying to say? What am I trying to do? I'm trying to enrich people's souls and help them smile. That'd be pretty much it. I think we should articulate for other people. So a songwriter should be able to write songs that help another person actually say what they're feeling in their heart, but they didn't have the words. But we gave them the words with a hymn or with a chorus. And I think the hymns do that magnificently. And even though we might not be that traditional in our services, the prayer book that the Anglicans use and others use, that can also be the same thing. Oh, the book of Psalms for us. If we read the Psalm, it can help us say to God what we haven't got the words in ourselves to say, especially those Psalms that kind of are complaining to God. Like, God, why aren't you listening to me? Some of us wouldn't dare to pray those prayers, but here is David praying them, and he helps us to say things. And then maybe even we can arouse an emotion, a spiritual surge in a person that they didn't even have before, through actually giving them something that they weep at. They read a book, or they read a poem, or they see a painting, and it moves them. And I think that's part of our artistic purpose. And that's about it. Amen. Hope that helps a little.
Oh, it's so good. So good. I had to make new questions while I was sitting down there. But thank you for being here. Isn't that good? I love it. Can you tell he's a pastor, a preacher? I just thought that was so good to hear someone who's built churches and done the thing to talk about art and beauty and things in that way. I've also never had a glass of wine while listening to someone read scripture. So that's first. I kind of like it. Evening services from now on. I would just ask, I think this is always a big question, and I think it's come of what you brought through, and even as we walk through this room of first-time artists and people who've never put their art on a wall. Alyssa singing music that she's just recently written, which I cannot wait for that to come out. But to see Jess put her stuff out there and go, I don't know if it's that good. And clearly it is. There's no question. And to see Dana, I guess the question that makes me come right off the top, especially for you who kind of in some ways rediscovered this thing that you had been pursuing, and faith or religion or church had kind of said, no, you got to take a break. Why is it? And maybe you kind of just talked about it a bit. But why do you think it is so important that people are taking a chance and giving it a go to put art on a wall, which may or may not have a cross on it, which may or may not have a scripture written into it, which may or may not be called, quote unquote, Christian art, Why is it important? I know you tapped in a little bit, but maybe dial in that a bit more about why is it so important each and every one of us find that place in that space where we go, man, beauty and wonder and art, it matters. It matters that we look at it that way.
Yeah, it does. And yeah, like I said, unfortunately, a lot of art produced today is not beautiful. And that's unfortunate because people have this great skill and yet they are using it in a dark way.
Yeah.
And the same in the music world. And that is part of the clash where I think Christians have thought, oh, well, we're not going to be part of that world.
Yeah.
But we should be. We should be here to push back
Yeah.
and occupy till I come, said Jesus. And I mean, once upon a time, we were the leaders in all these areas. Leonardo da Vinci, I mean, doing the Last Supper. And Michelangelo doing the Sistine Chapel ceiling. And he is still preaching today on the mural on most traditional Italian restaurants have got God's hand and Adam's finger and the creation of man. And he's still preaching today, whereas there was a priest in the Renaissance called Savonarola, and he and his band of quite rigorous priests called all art vanities. And so they would literally raid people's homes. And because the church ruled in the areas, they could just take whatever they want, and they'd take out the violins, and they took out a lot of the paintings, a lot of the works of art, and they'd put them in the piazza, and they'd burn them, and they'd call them the bonfires of the vanities. And nobody knows who Savonarola is today, though. But everybody's remembered Michelangelo. And so the enduring power of art, when you say, why take the risk? There are paintings in public spaces and in churches, stained glass windows, and on people's homes, on their walls in their homes, that endure day after day after day as a reminder. And people just see that, and it's another message to them from an artist who just decided to paint a cross, maybe.
Right. And we said this before, art is one of the greatest apologetics on the planet.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is it's one of the greatest arguments for a God who's created.
Yeah.
And I think we miss it when we don't give that opportunity to be seen again, too. Because everything would just be utilitarian.
Yeah.
So, okay, you did say this, because I know there's some creatives and you said don't split it, and I agree with you. I think we're all making art in our daily life. And you said this like, oh, I just created this thing, and then I sold it to this guy, and he bought it for $500, and we're all like, yeah, super easy. It's all gonna go that easy, swimmingly well, no problems. But was there ever, is that really how it went? Or was there a time where you go, I don't know if anyone would ever want this? Because I think for a lot of people who are putting, whether it's music, traditional art, paintings, maybe there's someone speaking. I had someone send me some poetry today. It's like, it doesn't seem like for them, at least, it sounds as easy as the way you talked about it. What is the thing that keeps us from being willing to put it, not even put it on the wall, forget put it on the wall, even show it to our family, right? What is it that keeps us from being willing to do that? And how have you continued to do it, whether or not people liked it, bought it?
Right. Well, I'd done maybe 100, maybe more paintings before that and never sold one.
Yeah, so why'd you keep going?
Yeah. Well, because I needed my soul to splash itself on a canvas.
That's so good.
And I needed, there's like, you can pray for a while, you can do Bible studies for a while, you can preach for a while, you can go back and pray and worship for a while, but there's something in me that wants to go as well as all that, and out of all that, actually, go splash myself on a canvas.
I love it.
And see it, and there's something that invigorates.
Yeah.
As soon as you do your gift, the wind blows.
Yeah.
And so I think that was, but then, okay, all the art up until that point was me trying to figure out. The Lord gave me a picture. and I painted that picture. And that was why
Yeah.
it worked. And I had laid it down because art is a very seductive mistress and can steal your heart. And the Lord wanted my whole being given to him. And so it's art for me is not my primary calling. It is in my peripheral view. There was one opportunity I had to paint 25 paintings for an exhibition in China. And even while I was preaching, I'd be thinking about what I'm going to paint. And so it had come around here. And it was worth, it was going to be worth quite a lot. And so I was thinking about it, but it was getting in the way.
Yeah.
So I told my agent, I said, I'm not going to do it. It's getting in the way of my thinking. I can't afford to have anything else in that view other than this. And so it is submitted, if you like, to the Lord.
Yeah.
It is surrendered to him for his purpose. And I think that's what we should do with our gifts.
Well, and interesting though, because you could flip that and say, for those of you who are making art or music or something of that ilk in their primary thing, it is their primary thing. And what is the thing that is distracting, taking away from, keeping them from doing the thing they know is primary for them?
That's a great question. For some, it definitely is. We have an artist in our church in Sydney, Kirsty Nelson, who has been the finalist in 3 Archibald prizes, and it's very hard to get up there. Out of 3,000 submissions, she was number 2 one year, and she got hung in the finals in the last 2 years, I think. But her paintings are unbelievable. They're incredible.
Yeah.
And I make sure she gets celebrated in church, and people see her artwork, and that encourages other artists to turn up when they realize they're going to be celebrated in church, not just tolerated.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. But that would be her primary thing to, and so she's very successful, and she gets commissions, but she's also a deep believer. She has one of our largest connect groups and serves the Lord, and so the two are combined. But like you say, for her, that's the primary thing.
So if we were going to wrap up tonight, because I do think even in your conversation, your presentation, you gave a lot of what I would have asked. I think but it was great, and I appreciate you going with the color theme as well. I think this is great. I just appreciate your willingness to take that on. But when you think of an art form of whatever kind, like you said, we've said this for a long time. Creativity is not limited to someone who puts it in their job title, and your ability to own whatever you're doing in whatever space you're doing it, paid or unpaid. Sometimes the creative work we do is not the most lucrative work we do. But what are the things that you've seen to and I think I could guess, but I'm going to let you say. What are the things that have unlocked your kind of creative gift? What are the things? Because like you said, these aren't the paintings you were doing prior to that day you got that picture. But what are the things that when you walk into your studio, when you know that you're getting commissioned for something, what are the things that either one, keep you sharp, they keep you ready to go, they keep you when it's time to get into a room and begin to paint on a canvas, and then what are maybe some of the habits? They won't be the same for everyone, but what are some of the patterns and habits and rituals that you have that allow you to kind of just, because creative act, we've all read the book maybe, that Stephen Pressfield, the not Art of War, but the War of Art, that every time you make a creative endeavor, there is without question going to be an opposition to that creative act. So you have to have tools that allow you to keep working through that.
Man, it's a great question with a very big answer. So let me just try to start by talking about friends and the people who you are working with. You need to have encouragers.
Yeah.
because, as you're saying, we are fragile in our self-image about our artistic presentation.
Yeah.
And if somebody gives us one little knock, it's easily, that little flower easily closes up. So I think being amongst encouraging voices is very important, but I don't think they should be dishonest voices either.
Not the American Idol mom who said, "You're a great singer."
Yeah. No,
Go try out.
yeah, and I think if with tact and grace we are able to ask questions, not just make critiques, but ask questions. You know, like, would you have thought of, you know, why did you do those kind of things to help draw out more of what's in there. I think also getting around people who are further down the line of whatever we're doing, whether it's music, whatever, dance, getting amongst better people. If we're the smartest person in the room, we're in the wrong room.
Right.
We should be in a room where there are better people than us that inspire us. And I think young artists and of any kind, young chefs, young musicians, would be surprised how willing an older voice is to share with them and to talk with them about what they should do. I mean, if I ever have a young artist who's really hungry to learn how to do stuff, I will say, well, we've got to start by getting your hand-eye coordination happening.
Yeah.
So you should be drawing all the time. Now, I don't draw all the time, but I used to draw a lot. I'm more like am creating messages and for preaching most of the time. But they said that Jimi Hendrix would go nowhere without the guitar strapped around him. And he'd even go to the toilet, with his guitar around him.
Everybody's laughing because they know they've had their greatest ideas.
Yeah. Right. Or in the shower.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's such a pain when you get a great idea in a shower.
Can't write it.
Yeah.
There's an invention for you.
Yeah.
Waterproof tablet. Let's go.
I've seen that. Yeah. But you'd feel kind of stupid in there. Right.
You know?
Yeah, but, so I had another thought there before,
Yeah, my
which
bad.
has escaped.
I apologize.
It's escaped me, but
I have that effect on people.
yeah, no, it's it's great. I think. What I was going to say is what keeps the creative edge. For me, sometimes accidents are. Like, I don't know if you realize how Jackson Pollock discovered how to do his paintings. It was an accident. He dribbled some paint on a canvas. And you can watch it in the movie about him. I don't know, I can't remember what it's called, but it's about Jackson Pollock. It's a great flick. He died young, which is a bit sad. But he dribbled some paint and he tried some more, and that became his thing from then on. And his paintings sell for millions now.
Yeah.
Multiple millions of dollars. Another guy, like you said, you were talking about selling art and, is it all swimmingly easily? Well, Van Gogh, I think he sold just one painting in his life. And any paintings that he did sell, to an outsider, were bought by his brother and under a pseudonym. And so he would be so shocked today to see his art being sold for $200 million, for goodness sake.
The book was the 30,000. Is it the 30,000 leagues under the sea? Is it 30? 20. I was gonna say 10. I wanted 30. I appreciate your help. He got rejected every time he put it out there. It didn't sell and didn't get picked up till after he passed away.
Yeah.
And now it's read by. And I think this is the part that's hard. If you're only doing art for the sake of someone purchasing it, buying it, then it does become that much more challenging. If you're doing it to throw your soul on a painting, I love that. Throw your soul on a canvas.
Yeah.
It's of course there's the part of it that needs to support your life and those things.
Yeah, well, let me just talk about that for a second, because some artists are too puristic for their own good.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so I really only ever did very big paintings. But then you know, my agent, like she was trying to sell them. So once I'd done this very big one, I thought, oh, I'll do big paintings, you know, like, but they wouldn't sell. And so she said, look, people's walls are only, you know, the average wall size is this. A painting about this size, 3 by 4, is going to be your best, you know, that's going to sell better. And, you know, I kind of reacted to that a little because I just love doing the big canvas thing. But I thought, yeah, okay, because what's the point of having done 10 of these big paintings and they're sitting in your studio? Nobody's looking at them. It's ridiculous. So at least do something that people are going to actually take away with them, because that's what you want. It's not I want to sell the painting. I'd like them to have something on their wall that's going to make them smile when they look at it, or remind them of something beautiful. And so I listened to her, and then she said, well, these colors are going to be favored in this country or in that area. And so I started to listen to that as well. And when you get feedback from the marketplace, you can actually use your skills to satisfy that desire that the marketplace is telling you that's what they've got. And I think we should see ourselves somewhat as artisans, as craftsmen, helping to beautify buildings, helping to beautify people's lives, by not trying to force on them with our purest sincerity, saying, no, this is what I do, like it or lump it, that's all you're going to get. I think we're missing the mark. There's got to become a contract between us and the marketplace that says, I'll do it in your specs so that you're going to enjoy something and you're going to actually take it away. And you know, that'll be good. And then another thing that you mentioned, like, it sparked a thought in me about the creative process for a lot of, again, purist and very sincere artists. They think, I do it when I'm inspired. And I've never done it. Like, well, I have done one or two like that, but mostly, I will say, in my daily schedule, I'll be in the studio. I'll be able to get in the studio at 11. I'll be done by 3. And maybe I've got, I don't know, 4 paintings to do or something. And I'll go down there and I'll see the canvas, and I love a blank canvas. It just inspires me. So I look at it and I've got the ideas of what I'm going to do. Or else my agent has said, we need more of these, we need more of that. And so I'll just do those. But as I do it, the inspiration comes. Sometimes the accidents happen, and it becomes something better than it was going to be, because you kind of flow with the accident. And in my style, I've got one stroke, and that's it to get it done. Like a cross, that's it. It's got to be right. So how I'm putting that on the spatula, how I'm getting the paint there right, it's got to be right, because I can't go over it again and again. It's got to have that first impression. That's just my style. So I'm committed to that, and that's why that's so quick. But it's like people say, man, you only took 10 minutes to paint that thing. I said, 40 years and 10 minutes.
10 minutes to put it on the canvas. Yeah. Well, the schedule, sorry, I just had to say it. It sounds so cool. I would say this to you as we kind of close, and in a moment we're going to do a little champagne toast to all the people who've put their artwork on display, played some music, and so I'd love for you, if you have the time, to stick around. We're going to do that, and I hope they're getting it ready, and just to celebrate them. But I will say this to you. What I heard there was, one, obviously, be around people who encourage, and I hope a night like this would encourage you. Whether it's encouraging specifically to you or someone you know who needs to step out and keep stepping out, maybe you are one of the encouragers. 2, ego or insecurity. It's interesting how ego and insecurity can make you do the same thing. They can make you not ask the right people, be willing to talk with the right people, ask for people to challenge you a little bit. And so sometimes our ego and insecurity look very similar because they outwork in very similar ways. And I would, again, be willing to make mistakes. I remember when I was doing graphic design, the amount of times I'd put something out that was not what I originally intended. But art and creation and all these things are part of a journey. They are not just like he said, that to me it's taken 10 minutes to put it on a canvas. But it took me 40 years to make sure I knew what I was going to even think about putting on the canvas. I hope tonight, what the goal of nights like tonight is they're here so that we would be people, whatever our canvas might be, who are willing to put our soul on the canvas, willing to take what is working in us and is at work in us and put it in a place that would bring joy and a smile, whatever it is that you feel like you are to bring into the earth. And to realize that whatever has got gunked up on the art that is in front of you, that you are meant to make, that there is something that begins to wipe that away, and you begin to realize again that there is beauty and wonder, and there's art, and there's creation, and there's something on you that is meant to be seen and read, to articulate someone else's soul. And we hope that that encourages you in doing so. For those of you who are here to celebrate, I was talking to Dana's kiddos. We're talking about her cheer squad, and thank you for doing that. Because the reality is there's not a single person in the room who are just going to put our things out there without having someone to support us and encourage us. And so whether you're the artist or you're the one who is encouraging the art, let us all participate in bringing something to bear that brings life into the earth. Amen? That's just preacher habit. I just said it. And I'm so glad you're here. And would you give it up again for Phil Pringle, who came and shared, and did come all the way from Australia. A few other things on the way. And Pastor Chris, who's also here, who is a work of art, and she's just incredible to have them here, and really thankful. And this is our very first gallery night, so I want to say thank you to all the artists, all the people who put art on, hung the wires on the wall, and put, and you all know the usual suspects. But there was an army of people who were here this week setting the sound and setting stuff, and it just doesn't happen without all of that. And so I'm super thankful for them. In fact, they're pouring champagne so we can give people a toast. And so this stuff doesn't just happen without those who are willing to put in the work. And there were people who walked in here last Sunday morning who've never seen it like this, including us. And so I'm just beyond grateful. So again, we hope that tonight encourages you, and this will not be our last. I've had 2 or 3 of you come up to me tonight and say, I've got art to put on these walls. I said, we got to get more walls. And I hope that is the recurring theme around this place, is that there in 6 months or a year, in 3 years or 5 years, what we hope the testimony of this building is, one of them is that that's where I first did that thing. That was the place that I gave my first art thing, or my first poetic thing, or my first song was sung, or my first sermon was preached, or whatever it might be, that out of this place there are first timers that became regulars, and they began to walk in what the Lord put in their heart to do. So we're so glad you're here. So thank you so much for being here. We'll be back tomorrow morning if you didn't know, and it's going to be a blast, and we're really excited about it, 10 a.m. And why don't we head out here? We're going to do a quick champagne toast. Just on your way out, grab it at the counter. You can buy the artwork. If you want to go to the counter afterwards, you can purchase that. We'd love for you to have it. It'd be great.